Okay, let's run a few more commands and then back up our configuration file from our switch to our TFTP server, this server that we've set up. And we're also going to back up our iOS, our operating system, from the switch to the server that we set up to handle that. Okay, another thing we want to do is I'm going to exit out of global config mode and take a look this time and do a show. Let's do a show command here. MAC-address tab table, and let's take a look at our MAC address table of our switch. Okay, and you can see that the switch only knows one MAC address, and it happens to be the MAC address on port FA0/23. So our switch knows about this server right here, right? Because this server pinged the switch, so it knows about that one, but it doesn't know about these other entities out there. So let's find out about them. Okay, so what happens if I, from the switch, ping 192.168.1.254, right? Can I ping? Well, I can't ping a 192.168.1 computer if my IP address on my switch is 192.168.9 network. So I'm pinging a different network there. So that's not going to work. So what can I do? Well, I can, from this server, I can ping the switch. Let's try that. So ping the switch here. Ping 192.168. Or I'll ping, actually what I'll do is I'll ping one of the other computers. So he'll ping 100, there we go. And let's just try, for the sake of argument, to see if we can ping the switch, right? Switch is 254. Can we ping the switch? No, once again, separate network, and there's no router. I'm on the one network. Okay, so that didn't work, right? But I could ping the other computer. So what I'll do is I'll take these guys here and open up a command prompt and have them ping 192.168.1.101. Okay, that was successful. And then I'll have this guy ping 102. Okay, that's happening. So now what I'm doing is I'm having these clients pinging each other, right, on the one network, and let's see if the switch has built up its MAC address table now. So we'll open that up and we'll put in that command again, show MAC address table, and you can see now that the MAC address table on the switch is full of MAC addresses on the different ports, port 2, port 1, port 24, port 3, and port 23. So the switch has learned about all these other MAC addresses that are out there, and it's put it in its table and attached it to different ports in its table, right? The switch learns MAC addresses from the source addresses as the frames hit the switch. It can strip off the frame header and it will put the source MAC address into its table. Okay, I'm going to label these guys before we move on. This switch right here is, let's see here, switch 2, okay, and IP address 192.168.99.254. And that was the management IP address that we gave it. And then this server here is, we'll call it just S for server, and then I'll say 192.168.99.253. So 99.254, 99.253, and then 1.254, and then 1.102, 1.101, and 1.100. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to back up our configurations from the switch to this server here. And to do that, we're going to use a TFTP server. So we'll click on this server, go to config, and we'll check out, make sure TFTP is on. All right, TFTP is on. All right, you can see it's on, and you can see a bunch of operating systems from all the different platforms that are already stored in its directory, its folder. Right, so this is emulating a folder on the TFTP server on the hard drive of the server, just emulating that. And you can see on my other one, on this first one that I did, if I click on server here and go to TFTP, you can scroll down and look what it says here, Dan's ios.bin. There's the operating system that I backed up to the server, and then my configuration file, Dan's switch-config. So that's what we want to do on this server right here. Okay, and to do that, we're going to need to do a couple things. Click on the switch. All right, and one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to say show flash. All right, I'm going to do show me flash. If I do that, I can see that in the flash memory, I just did show flash memory, you can see there is the operating system. It's C2960-LAN-based-MZ.122-25.fx.bin. It's a bin file. That is the operating system in a file, right? It's a .bin file, right? So now I know that is, I write this down. So I've written that down on paper. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up my running configuration to a startup config file on my switch. So I'll say copy, and this is running dash tab config to startup dash tab completion config. Copy running config startup config. And it says, hey, do you want a destination file name startup config? Yep, just hit enter and that defaults to yes. And I've done that. Also, you probably already know this, you can just do copy run start. Okay, and that also does it and backs up the config file. So now we're ready to back up our config file to our server, right? Just to double check, can we ping the server? 192.168.99.253. We can, so we know we're communicating with the server, so this should work fine. So I'll say copy start tab startup config TFTP. So copy space startup config startup dash config space TFTP, and it says ask for the address or name of the remote host. I'll just give it the IP address 253. And destination file name, and let's give it a special name, Dan's config, and hit enter, and writing startup config, and looks like it worked. And to double check, go and click on the server, and then click on TFTP, and look to see if it's in there. And if we look, hey, there's Dan's config, so that worked.